Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone from Pakistan. I am Asban Sari, the founder of the organization Peacemakers Pakistani. It is an organization meant to educate citizens about public spaces and its importance, and to carry out projects to create better places for the community's well-being with the help of placemaking strategies. I'm also the regional leader from Lahore, Pakistan at the global network of placemaking leaders known at the network known as Placemaking X. The capital cities are different in its nature and functioning. They play a certain role in a country, and thus we must understand the dynamics and let the change start from there to inspire more changes in other areas of the country. Today, we are here to talk on the challenges faced by the two capital cities, Islamabad and Chandigarh, which were designed by the European master architects in the 60s. We will explore their design from the South Asian context and cultural norms, and also how we can make the cities better at human scale. Our speakers will share projects that are already under progress in order for us to understand the possibilities of making change happen. Now, I would like to introduce the moderator for today's session, Mr. Vikas Chandra, who is a finance and public-private partnership expert in the Smart City Mission Management Unit in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. He oversees more than 400 public-private partnered urban projects, which include projects in solid waste management, rooftop solar, affordable housing, public bike sharing, public utilities, smart parking solution, and mobility cards. Previously, he was project coordinator for a World Bank funded project for the Department of Tourism of the government of Uttar Pradesh. The program demonstrated tourism as a poverty reduction tool in the heritage rich areas of Agra, Bras region, and the Buddhist circuit. For more than a decade, he was a senior manager, then assistant vice president with ILNFS infrastructure, leading government advisory and transaction projects in aviation, urban, and tourism infrastructure across India. As an architect, he has worked on over 150 projects, one of them being the infrastructure planning and layout for the Play University Township in Pune, while he was with Padmanishri B.V. Doshi at Vastu Shilpa Consultants Ahmedabad. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you so much. Good evening, and a hearty welcome to all of you, to all the brothers and sisters in Pakistan. Namaste. What a great day. And when two cities we are discussing, Islamabad and Chandigarh, and more so in the week of love. So that's a kind of a perfect setting. And we have some great speakers today. And when I was actually thinking about these two cities, I found that a city was designed by a French and a city was designed by a Greek. We say in a very common language, it is all Greek to us. So it means you're not understanding it and you're kind of not belonging to that entire conversation. Now, the whole idea and what we'll discuss today is we have these cities designed by French architects and town planners and Greek designer for Islamabad. How have they become a more Indian city? How have they become a more Pakistani city? Now, that's the whole idea where we are going to talk about. To start with, we'll start with Jeet Kumar Gupta ji. Jeet Kumar Gupta ji is a practicing architect, a great architect, and a man with immense experience. When we were doing the preparatory kind of introduction about a month back, I thought, what would I know more about Chandigarh, which probably I have not read. But when Jeet has started speaking, trust me, after 5 minutes, I was taking notes. So there are great facades of the city of Chandigarh, which Jeet sir will be kind of telling in. He is a man with prolific experience over 51 years. And he has been there with the Institute of Town Planners, the Institute of Architects. He has been there in Punjab University. He is also kind of advisor to many of the academic institutions. A man of great knowledge. I think his words, his wisdom, his knowledge is his introduction. Jeet sir, the floor is yours. We'll have 15 minutes to talk about. And if I can request you, let's talk about in the first 5 minutes about the city, how it was conceived, how it was kind of planned in the next 5 minutes, probably you can talk about how the city has undergone from 1953 to today in 2021. How has the evaluation been? And the third part, when you can talk about the transformation in the places, that is where the placemaking initiative would be more interesting to our viewers. Jeet sir, all yours, please.
Thank you, Vikash. I need the, sharing of the screen. You have to enable me because I've been host disabled my sharing. Can I have the screen? Screen share is not being allowed to me.
Could
Vikash?
you try now? Could you try now?
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, it's coming. That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Vikash. I think it's both an honor and a pleasure to be part of this great webinar with Dr. Khurram, Vanita, and Asba, and my friends and colleagues joining us. Let me confess it, was born in Pakistan and I cherish Pakistan. And this is my homecoming when I'm speaking to this. This is both an honor and pleasure. And I'm grateful to Vanita for giving me this opportunity and to get connected with people like Dr. Khurram and Asba. And of course, Vikash was a discovery and the process, I hope we will try to do the justice we can do it, but I think cities are very difficult. Cities are, in fact, difficult to be explained. A journey of more than 70 years in a period of 15 minutes. I think that's where, I could be faltering, but I'll try to do the whatever best I can. Let me talk about the Chandigarh. Chandigarh, they call city beautiful. I call it a city of crisis because it was born in crisis. It was conceived in crisis. It was grown in crisis. It continues to be in crisis. It's a crisis of basically population, pollution, then there are, there's transportation and infrastructure and services and poverty. They are the challenges which are facing the city. But let me also explain, despite all these odds, city have withstood the test of the time. City approved its efficacy. And this city came as a corollary of, division of India when uh, the Pakistan was created. Punjab lost the capital city of Lahore, so state was left without the capital city. So there was question of that is the capital permanent site of capital needs to be found because there were the Punjab government was going to in winter going to Jalandhar, in summer they were going to Shimla as the capital city, So ultimately in 48, it was 1948, it was decided, that the government will go in for a new city instead of looking at expansion of a new city. So the site was selected. Site was in the shadow of Shivalik range of hills with two seasonal chores defining its edge. There could not be a better site. And let me also explain to you, there was no foreign hand, there was no advice. It was all selected by the Indian team, So city was to be planned for a population of 500,000 and to set an example of the in terms of the quality of infrastructure and the services. It was said this city will be a role model of urban development and infrastructure and will provide all the basic amenities of life in order to the poorest of the poor of its citizens. So it was a vision which drove the design of the capital city because it was to serve as a role model for planning and architecture for the future urbanization. So in order to, find those kind of solution, which was state-of-art solution, it was decided that a foreign architect who have the knowledge, understanding, expertise of Indian condition, and who has, worked on the urban planning and who can deliver a wonderful or state-of-art city. So a foreign expert needs to be hired. So Albert Marr was hired. He brought in Matthew Nowitzki, and the first master plan was prepared by him, which is on the left-hand side. But Matthew Nowitzki, who was his partner, who was in Polish architect, who was the main man doing the job and supporting the Albert Marr, they all jointly worked together the master plan. They worked out the, said this neighborhoods planning that was the basically super block, and they worked out most of the details of infrastructure. But unfortunately, the Matthew Nowitzki, who was blessed with the son, went to Tokyo to meet his wife. When returning back, the plane crashed, and there, things ended. Albert Meyer said, "We have already given the master plan. We have done the most majority of work, and planning has already been done. So please find somebody Indian who can do the job." But government was very clear, that city has not started. So they need somebody who could guide it. So Corbusier came in. So Corbusier brought, there were two English people, Jane B. Drew and Maxwell Fry, husband, wife. They came, and Corbusier brought his cousin. This is the team which ultimately prepared the second plan, made city a possibility. So Corbusier looked at what has been done in the past. The job of the Corbusier was to basically implement the city. So city was found to be, kept at 500,000 population, but they were very clear that city is not going to ever achieve this population for the simple reason city never had any economic base. It was a government city. There was no industry allowed. So accordingly, they said, let's not plan for 500,000. Let the development be segregated two distinct phases. That's 150,000 people in the first phase, and suppose the city gets going beyond 150,000, then they'll have the second phase. That means they will have another 350,000 people coming in. The planning will be done for rest of the thing. The only thing initiated, differentiated was stage one. That was first 150,000. That was supposed to be state-of-art planned development so that Chandigarh has its name. Stage two was a high-density development. But Corbusier was very clear. In case city goes beyond 5 lakhs, he said, we will not extend the city at all, will stage all additional population will be adjusted within the four walls of the city. That is 15,000 acre, and that will be stage three, will be re-densification of stage one. So therefore, this, the planning started, the Corbusier re-looked at the planning, and he said, no, this needs a revision, and ultimately they removed all the curves and they came to the straight line because Corbusier, hated the curves and he believed in straight line. And ultimately it said city has to be a organic entity, a city with, it's a commanding head as the capital, its heart as the city center, its hand of productivity industrial area, hands of learning university, brain and intellectual center in the parkways, the roads are arteries, and glass and bricks as the skin. So this is the vocabulary which defined the master plan of Chandigarh. So this was the first plan which was produced by Chandigarh for a second plan which was produced to Chandigarh. So sector, which was the basic unit of planning, which was about a square kilometer, 800 meter by 1200 meter, and then it had a content of 5,000 to 25,000. This was double the size of the super block which Albert Marr had earlier given. So sector planning was supposed to be a city within a city, self-contained and self-sufficient, and closed by fast-moving traffic lanes. And the city was planned to be an introvert city. And one of the famous architects called it Janana city for the reason it was only looking at inward. So this was the sector which was first sector to be planned by Jane B. Drew, and that's become the corollary how the city was to be planned, the next sectors to be planned. The circulation system of the city was based on the 7 V's. This was the mandate given by Siam during their evolution of traffic and transportation parts for the city, of which Corbusier headed that group, which was working on the future city planning and development. So V7 was converted into V8 BC to bring in the bicycle track as one of this. So this is one of the, street you can see. This is called the Janmarg, which leads to the capital complex. So housing was the major challenge because the government had very little money. The government had already finalized the areas, the infrastructure, services, and the kind of accommodation which was to be provided during the time of, Albert Meyer. So there, they never wanted to change it. They said, here is the money, here is the, our budget, and here it is the estimates which have been approved by the PWD and R. So please stick to this. You are at liberty to change the design of the houses, which they have done, but you cannot reduce the area, you cannot exceed the cost. So ultimately, it was a challenge to, how to have the most economical, cost-effective house, but still a kind of architectural vocabulary which will be distinguished for the Chandigarh. So ultimately, it's economy, technology, climate which govern the housing of this, the typology of housing. You can see how the brick has been used, and windows have been small because glass and wood were 7 times more expensive than the bricks itself. So they're dependent upon that. There were a lot of innovation which were made. Working was confined to the capital complex. And this is the one which was designed by the Corbusier. Of course, there you have on the left, that's the secretariat. Number 2 is the assembly. Number 3 is the, this is the High Court, which is the pillar of democracy. And number 5 remains, the Governor Palace. So this was the complex which Corbusier was supposed to design. Look at the secretariat, look at the assembly, look at the interior of the assembly, look at the High Court. So they formed basically the part of the capital complex, and which has been declared as the heritage. UNESCO has declared as a heritage. Part of the, community, this filling the gaps, because there are a lot of gaps. Corbusier, this is Sun Tower. They call it, this is Tower of Shadow, which that tells you how the sun moves and how you can control the sun. Chandigarh, this is emblem of Chandigarh, that's open to give and open to receive. That's open hand. So in our in its search for making this city as, which takes care of the basic needs of human being, of living, working, care of body and spirit, to make it healthy and, more productive. So there were educational institution, culture, and leisure valley. They were all created. So the Sukhna Lake, which was a lake which is an artificial created lake, which was never in the first master plan, which were Corbusier did it by shifting the capital complex to the west and making sure the Sukhna Cho basically retained the low-lying area, was, reclaimed to be created as a lake. So lake, and then the Museum, University, Gandhi Bhavan, they were all, and Chandigarh College of Architecture, they were all basically added as a, area to promote Chandigarh as the center of promoting human health, both physical and mental. Landscaping was, of course, made integral part of the city. City had development controls. Both each and every building is subjected to control. There are control within the city. There are control outside the city. So it's not only you are looking the build structure within the city, but we are looking at, though haphazard and planned development was, mar the city development. So within city, there are 8 or 9 kind of development which have been done. Even, advertisement control and gates were controlled. And outside was a periphery, first 8 kilometers and then 16 kilometers. Chandigarh is the only city in the, India or abroad, which has a edict, and edict is given by Corbusier, which aim is to how the city has been planned, what are its basic principles, what are its components, how the road work goes on, what are the special area of this architecture, which are the area which needs to be protected, and what thoughts and what future the city holds for this. And ultimately, he says, these are we are gifting to you these things, and we want this edict to be the guiding force in future for the future development. And he was saying the seed of Chandigarh is well sown. It is for the citizen to see that city flourishes. Looking at the, can I take Few minutes, please, Vikash.
5 minutes, sir. 5 minutes,
Okay.
please.
So looking at this, this city is the only city within four, decades of its launching. It's achieved its population of 500,000. City is now 1 million. Kabuzir said the city Chandigarh should never achieve a population of 1 million. The moment it goes 1 million, quality of life goes down. Productivity, of course, will go up. So Chandigarh is now having the second highest density. There are large number of slums. Every eighth person in the city lives in slums. The slums are basically growing at a faster pace. So this is our residential slums. These are the rehabilitation which has done. These are the commercial informal market which are occupying the road space. These are the condition of villages which have been left untouched. In the first phase, all villages were required. In the second phase, they were left as such, but they have done more damage than good to the city. But periphery, which got divided after 1966 reorganization Punjab, they were 75% went to the Punjab, 21% to Haryana, only 3% was left this. So periphery, which was supposed to protect the city, has been under the greatest threat, and it has become the greatest threat to the city itself, because this is now highly urbanized. So Chandigarh, let me also explain that Chandigarh remains a design city, not a planned city. Its master plan was prepared in 96 hours. It proved, that city could basically be planned and designed without even a master plan. So, but they said for any city to success, to be a success, its initial team is support of political bosses is more important. Bulk acquisition of land, planning with nature, preserving existing flora and fauna, designing building with nature and climate, bureaucratic model of managing the city. They are basically the gift of Chandigarh to the people. So ultimately, Chandigarh is the first city which gave recognition to the profession of architecture and planning, and it is the first city, which still remains a role model of planning in India, and globally it is being looked at. If you look at the placemaking, that the placemaking was defined at the city level to to make city get connected with the nature itself. So they are based in capital, lake, valley of leisure, city center. You look at in capital, this is a central piazza which they have created. Unfortunately, the governor palace is not there, so this is not complete. So therefore it is not being used. This is the end of the city, and that's what even when this is a very good place where large space is available, but it is not being used because of the location, because of the security reason. Look at this. This the kind of wisdom they did it, that the all the earth which was dig out to have those traffic and transportation network, that pedestrian are going up and vehicle are down, they never transported this, and they created the geometric hill. Lake, I said, it was created artificially, which added a placemaking, and this is one of the finest addition to the city, which has modulated its climate and which is the most visited place. Rock garden, which came subsequently out of the waste of the city, it has added a new kind of dimension to the area around the capital complex. Valley of Leisure remains one of the greatest events, which have transformed the economy, and it is crisscrossing the entire city. It has been maintained as such. It has not been touched, but it has been developed, as role model of lungs for parks, for stadium, etc. So this is the best, largest rose garden there. The water feature, you see how this festivals are being added to have a great recognition, and they are all happening in the Leisure Valley to mark the Rose Festival and different festival over this. Tagore Theatre remains one of the best place where you see all the theaters and all the dramas, etc. And Kabuzir Center is this is the building where the first master plan and the other buildings, all architectural work was done. This building remains still iconic, which has been preserved. So there are Valley of Leisure, there are city center again been modulated on the system of bazaar. You can see, this, but it has not worked the way it should have worked. It has its own problem, and it has own issues because of large number of informal market which have come up as a part of the planned city as per one of the scheme. So city are basically facing a lot of crisis of this uninformed this informal development. So you can see the roundabouts have been used as one of the best model of landscaping, and they are extensively used at night when the traffic is less. People sit over there. First residential sector to come in was, the sector 22. But unfortunately, the way the sector has been planned, there are V4, which Corbusier wanted as the best place where the people would come and sit. But this has divided the sector. This has created a lot of traffic. And with the result, the sectors are not functioning as a neighborhood. They are being invaded by the traffic and transportation problem. And that's what the sector remains divided into two halves. So you can see how this, they are great places, of course, Sector 22. They remain iconic with this cinema and this first hotel to come up in this, but they are all in chaos. There are informal markets which have sprung up and they were unauthorized, but because of the crisis, they were adjusted there. So they are having lot of pressure on these infrastructure and services. See how they are there. But I will conclude here that Chandigarh remains still a role model, but it tells a message. No city can be finite. No city can be, contained in four walls. It remains connected with its neighbors. City has to grow, but to in what manner it should be grow? No city should be seen in isolation. It should be seen in the larger context and regional center. So ultimately, Chandigarh has lot of messages for this, but there are a lot of learning for us. But let me also conclude, this is not a planned city, this is a designed city. And there were, that is the limitation it has. And since there was no, it was only 96 hours which Corbusier took to prepare the master plan, but still the city has withstood the test of the time. And people still believe city has the capacity and capability. And if political system don't interfere, the city can still retain its quality and still can be a role model, still continues to be role model in architecture and urban development. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeet sir. If you can,
I asked.
yeah, thank you. If you ask 100 people who designed Chandigarh, trust me, 99 would say Lee Corbusier. But nobody would be kind of knowing the information which you shared, that it was Albert Meyer who designed it. And the large office, most of the plans are designed by him. And if we didn't had this accident of this police architect coming back and his plane had not crashed, probably the designer would have been someone else. So thank you, Jeet Saab. That was a great information. I also loved, I can tell you with confidence that in India, the architecture and planning, two cities contributed the maximum. One was Chandigarh and the other was Ahmedabad. Both these cities actually propelled the profession of architecture and planning in the country. And let me add you one more fact, that Chandigarh today is one of the wealthiest city when it comes to the total GDP. So how does a city kind of become economic powerhouse? So that is where we'll discuss with Jeet Saab. We'll also discuss about the slums which you showed. We'll also discuss about the urban villages which are close by, how is the life impacting them, and how can they become a better place for the kind of inhabitants. So that is Chandigarh. So now it is time to come to another city which was designed close by the Greek architect. And very famously, I was reading about architect Doxadis, and what I learned was that he used to say that what humans need is not utopia, but entopia. So entopia is basically the place, and utopia is basically about feelings, or maybe a no place. So with this, I'll welcome my second speaker, Khurram Farid Bhatt. Khurram Saab is kind of an architect with kind of immense experience. He's currently designing the urban policy of Pakistan. He has also been a member of Federal Commission for the review of Islamabad Master Plan. He's also a member of the Pakistan Council of Architects and Town Planners, a man with immense knowledge, and no better person to explain how Islamabad happened or how Islamabad has evolved in the last, from 1960 to today in 2021. Khurram Saab, we look forward to hear from you, please.
Thank you very much. If you can, hello everyone. It's good to see you all this evening. And thanks to Asba and Placemaker giving us opportunity. Jeet Kumar Sab, it was very wonderful presentation. You have actually given us overview of Chandigarh. And I would like, if you can allow me to share screen, yes.
Yes, you should be able to, Khurram. You should be able to share.
Yes. So, the Islamabad is one of the few capital in the world which are planned. It falls Brasilia and Canberra, Islamabad. So there are very few cities which are purposefully designed being the federal capital of that country. When Pakistan got independence in 1947, the Karachi was the initial capital, and there was a need, there was an dire need to select a capital, and the site right in the north of Potahar region in Punjab, it was dedicated and it was selected and named for the new site of capital for the Pakistan. As my content, I will briefly I will go through the history of Islamabad and then what is the Islamabad Master Plan and the reality and the dilemma and then the current situation and how we are seeing what is going to happen in next few years, even after the implementation of the new master plan. If we look at the history, the subcontinent and especially the Pakistan, we are lucky to have Indus Valley civilization, which the very early planned settlements, which were actually designed and planned in Indus Valley, they fall in this region, and we have examples how they plan for the civic services and how the streets and the kuchas and the gullies were so planned that everything was well connected and designed at a pristine scale, and obviously everyone was getting benefit out of it. As I said, it was initially Karachi was the capital, and there was need to select a new site. So the Islamabad, this site was selected. The master plan of Islamabad was designed and prepared on the principles of Dynamo Metropolis. Doxidas in 1967, his firm was hired to design the master plan, and the basic concept was that gridiron for the purpose that
ये वीडियो क्यों नहीं आ रहा? कैसे?
I don't know.
Hello.
My video is on. I don't know why you can't see. Everyone can see
you. We can see the presentation. We can hear you well.
You would be able to see only presentation.
Yeah, the presentation is fine, sir.
No, we can see him. Actually,
we can see him. We can also see the presentation.
Yes, we see both.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead, Khurram sir.
So the basic concept of gridiron in each grid, the grid composed of 2 by 2 kilometer, and it has 4 subsectors, and then each subsector has its own center. So there is a market and the commercial center, which has public buildings, parks, and commercial activity. And then there is other subsector which has mohalla shops and primary school and other uses right next in the neighborhood. So each sector has public buildings, commercial activity, civic communities, and also everything is available on a pedestrian scale. If you look at the sectoral from the very right side, the green portion, this one, these are the main government center where all the diplomatic center and Supreme Court of Pakistan, and also the Parliament House is based there. And then very next to it, that is the area where all government institution buildings are placed. And from that point onward, we have Grid Island that is exactly 6.6, that is exactly 2 by 2 kilometer. And if you look at right in the center of each square, there is a rectangle, which is the Markaz, which is a city center and Markaz center. And then each sector is divided into 4 subsectors. If we look we can see the 8 sectors, and each sector has all the public building. There are parks and the riverine present there. And in Islamabad, the whole sector has been allocated for the green and for the park area. That is a closer look for each sector. So how we see that Islamabad is designed, each sector is designed on a pedestrian scale. From the Markaz of each sector, the total distance is about 1 kilometer, and for each subsector, that is a 500 meters. So for our children and for the neighborhood shopping and for going to prayer area, for that matter, if you are going to a mosque, you can literally walk to the mosque and all primary school and shopping center. So when we are talking about the idea of placemaking, Tuxedo's planning was pretty much emphasizing, although a lot of planners and policymakers and architects, they don't agree with my idea that Islamabad is initially planned for the city and for the rich people, but at the same time, it is also at a pedestrian scale with well connected roads and infrastructure. So if we look at the hierarchy of the roads, we have major roads that are 1,200 feet wide, 600 feet wide, and each sector is divided by 300 feet wide roads. And with availability of that much right of way, we can plan at the moment, we can plan the mass transit, which is also being planned and implemented. At the moment, there are 2 mass transit corridors being implemented, and there are 4 to 5 more mass transit corridors which are going to be implemented. So, city was designed for 2 million population, and at the moment it has already crossed 2 million population. There are no residential area which is for poor people, which are for lower income and affordable population people. And there is a backlog of over 100,000 units in the capital. So every year there is an increase in backlog that is about 25,000 units. if you look at this map, Islamabad has 5 zones. The pink one, which is the zone 1, and on the left side, that is zone 2. On the top side, which is the zone 3, that is where the Margla Hills lies. And on the yellow one is zone 4, and then zone 5 at the bottom side. And the rest of you can see the Rawalpindi area, which was going to be incorporated, the theme and the concept of gridiron, but unfortunately, Islamabad administration just could only implement few sectors in whole of the jurisdiction. So the reality about if you see the master plan, it has a linear. The concept was the linear development with the increase in population. The rural area was going to be developed. We can see the residential zones and the blue area right bisecting whole of Islamabad, starting from the G sectors up to the 17 sectors. So same is the case with industrial zone and institutional zones, which were supposed to be developed, but unfortunately, just because of lack of good governance, we were unable to develop in a true spirit. So there are 8 zones. If we look at the Doxidas planning, the whole of Islamabad was divided into 8 zones. The first is administrative zone, the commercial district, education sector, industrial sector, diplomatic enclave, residential areas, rural areas, and green areas. Later on, they, as I said in earlier slides, that then they were made into 5 zones. And in 1979, the rural areas were composed to UCs. In the most developed sectors, the sectors which falls in F and G series, they are developed most, and few of the sectors in E series, they are developed in I series. So 20 years ago, if we look at the master plan and what are the dilemmas, there were 12 slums in whole of Islamabad, and as of today there are 49 slums and 14 underserved areas located in 15 UCs. So the main sectoral area is there, but at the same time, rest of the Islamabad has been developed haphazardly without any prior approval and without any regulatory framework. So we can see many slums rather than just a planned city, planned federal capital. And at the same time, we look at the green cover, which has the vegetation cover, which has also reduced in last 3 decades. In Islamabad, when I was given the opportunity to review the Islamabad master plan policies and procedures, I was shocked to know that the smallest unit for affordable people, those are not those have not been considered, and those have not been incorporated in overall master plan. So we, with the approval of the cabinet, we have reviewed in a way that the smaller plots in the smaller streets for the lower segment, for the affordable people, can also be incorporated. So as Doxidas and Le Corbusier, they plan mainly influenced from the American planning standards, which are mainly on the gridiron. We have ideal conceptual plan, but at the same time, as Jit was saying, that in Chandigarh there are many slums and many flaws. Irrespective of, we have so many institutional, so many architectural, and so many landmarks which we can present, but at the same time there are some failure institutional level. So in current situation, based on what's happening all over the world, in 60s and 70s and 80s, people were focused on car-led cities. The streets were widened in order to encourage motor vehicles. But in early 2000 and as of now, India is developing 100 smart cities, and our Prime Minister has focused on 5 million housing. And at the same time, he has clearly mentioned that we are going to save our cities by taking initiatives in a way that all the modern requirements are being met. So the pedestrianization and the bus network and the green spaces, and the modern industry has been encouraged to come into the cities rather than conventional labor intensive and raw material intensive industry. So cities, specifically Islamabad, is also now focused on IT and other service-based industries, so that the congestion and the other heavy traffic which can be discouraged. So we were analyzing what is actually happening in each sector and what is the ratio of walkability if we look at each sector. So we came to know that the educational area, the schools, most people like to walk towards schools and going towards the sectors. And at the same time, there are, we have witnessed that particularly in Islamabad, we can see the footpaths and some sort of availability of infrastructure in terms of walkability. So people like to walk towards going to workplace, education places, and going to mosque and for neighborhood or daily routine shopping. In terms of cultural activities, we have. Am I going over the time, or is fine for a couple of more minutes?
Khurram Saab, 3 minutes, please.
3 minutes, okay. So we have culturally, we have established culturally rich centers in terms of to entertain and attract citizens in Islamabad, because all over the country, people are trying to migrate into the Islamabad. So urbanization and all other pressure of requesting and making it logical that there should be some activity for that purpose. Green spaces are well maintained, as I said, F9 Park, and that's the view from Rawal Lakeview Park, which has been built on Rawal Lake. This is a view of F9 Park, which is the most central open space in Islamabad. That's the night view from the most popular eatery, Monal of Islamabad, right from the top of Margula Hills. That's another view. So we have fine dining places within the building and outside different open settings. These are the few restaurants. And because Islamabad is placed at the foothills of Margula Hills, so there are tracks and trails available for people who likes to do hiking and trekking. They can go there. So we have monuments. On the right top, that is a Pakistan monument, and we have Mandir in Saidpur village. So we got plenty of food streets. So coming towards what are the challenges have been facing in Islamabad, we did a case study for the most old sector, which is the G6. very first sector which was established in 1960s, early 60s. So this is the whole overview of the sector, which is 2 by 2 kilometer on top side. That is a Jinnah Avenue, and 7th Avenue on the right side Ataturk Avenue. The blue one is the Markaz, and on the right and left side these are the 4 subsectors of G6. These are commercial, open spaces, residential, and the contour analysis of all existing situation. Masajid, Imam Barga, daycare center, public places, hospitals. These are the overview, some pictures of existing buildings. We did even land use analysis. You can see the most part is owned by the private sector, and also the government sector is a major occupier in G6 by providing housing to affordable and lower tier of the population which are employed by the government. You can see the size of the plots, 10 marla, which is 10 marla houses and 2 canal and 4 canal houses, and also below 2 canals. This is green cover, which we calculated at how much trees are being planted. We found out that there are less green cover than what we were expecting in G6. And over the period of time, on one avenue, which we checked into 2008, there were 535 trees planted, and in 2019, there were only 122 trees left. So in regeneration practice, we have tried to use the government land and the private land, which is quite difficult to acquire in Pakistan. So we didn't touch that, but the government land we have tried to build and make the case that it is the most focal sector in Islamabad, so how we can improve it. Initially, there were only 2,448 housing units, and as of total 5,714 units, and in proposed the number has significantly increased. So these are some of the land uses which has been incorporated. So initially there were 4,788 units, and with the regeneration we created 17,864 units. If you look at on the left side, that is the existing land uses, and on the right side, that those are the proposed. So we have increased the park area, and also we have increased the public buildings, and we propose different land uses for that purpose.
So can we conclude?
Yes,
please?
just a couple of more slides. Yes. So this is the new Islamabad, which we will see once it's been incorporated. The G6 has been regenerated. We will see the more sort of international and cultural things. So more reliable infrastructure, public transport, bicycle lanes, pedestrian-friendly footpaths, and with the zebra crossings. And the concept and the idea of place make we have tried to incorporate in whole spirit that in G6, when a resident has to work or go to a leisure place, everything is in the same sector. At the moment, each sector has been divided for a specific purpose. If you need to have a very good school, you might have to go to or some other sector. And so is the job opportunity and other services. So for G6, the whole idea is going to be embedded in one sector. These are the roads which are going to be rehabilitated and rejuvenated for the purpose of placemaking. These are the cross sections. Okay, we have proposed that Islamabad is the last slide. We have also made it mandatory that because Islamabad is facing a huge shortage of water, so there is going to be a rainwater harvesting drive throughout Islamabad, so that with the car washing and for all other purposes, the rainwater is going to be used instead of being wasted in the drains and the nalas in Islamabad. So that's it from my side. I would be happy to answer any question.
Thank you. Thank you, Kuram sir. In fact, both cities have one thing in common. They both are beautiful cities. And they both have a backdrop of hills. And that restaurant which you are showing in, I wonder how good their food is, but the view which they serve is definitely worth going in. So that was great. Thank you, Kuram sir. Wonderful. Now, I have one question to both Jeet Saab and Kuram Saab. You know, cities have a great digestion. When I say digestion, I basically mean they're able to digest poverty. So when people come to the cities and they overall grow in their economy, and they are able to they come in the system and the city grows, and so do they. Now the question is, when we plan our cities, why don't we plan enough for the poor? Why do we still have slums in Islamabad? Why do we still have urban villages which are really not thought over? So do our Greek architects, do our French architects understand this concept of this subcontinent? And are they not sympathetic enough? That is my question. Let's have a brief answer from Jeet sir, also from Kuram sir.
In fact, if you look at the cities are never inclusive. Cities all based in, they believe in exclusion. Larger the city, more is the exclusion. Unfortunately, if you do the total analysis of the city, the most productive, most economic, the vibrant cities, they only believe in one thing. They are serving the elite, they are not serving the poor. For the simple reason, the land values go very, very high. The affordability becomes a major issue. And that means even people, who are living in that city for 10 to 15 years, they are simply thrown out. So unfortunately, inclusion is only in the vocabulary of planner, but cities don't believe in inclusion. You saw in COVID-19, what happened, even after these labor force, the people, poor people who are the backbone of the city, who keep the city going, who service the city, all, even household and industry and all businesses. And once they start facing certain problem, the first one hit is the poor people. They are not owned by them and they are thrown out,
Jeet sir, if you could meet
in case of Islamabad, as I have been working there for over a decade now, the thing is, we have two scenarios. There are people who definitely need housing and they cannot afford to live in a capital. And living in a capital is not a joke. I mean, all over the world, the capitals are quite expensive compared to the rest of the cities in that country. So there should be some sort of inclusion, how we are going to manage and how we are going to include them while providing residences and accommodation to that segment of population in federal area. And the other problem which I have observed that there are land grabbers which are opportunists, and they find it a shortcut. They take it as a shortcut to get into federal area without paying any rent, without paying any money. They build a cottage or they build a house and start living there, and it is almost impossible to vacate state land from them. So there are two issues. At the moment, we are working on a project which is a planned sectoral area of Islamabad, and 80 to 85% of that area has been built by illegal squatters. The original owner, they have already been paid, and they sold that land, or they give permits to people so that they can occupy there, and it is almost impossible to get that vacated. At the same time, the federal government, that they are working how to accommodate that. That's what I said, that initially there were no bylaws to make it the way how people can start living in federal area. And the third problem which I have seen, I'm not sure about India, but in case of Pakistan, we have least mortgage ratio in the country. So people try to buy a plot instead of building a house. So if you see the map of Islamabad, there are hundreds and thousands of plots, vacant plots available, but there are no houses. So there is no mechanism. If we have ample supply of housing rather than plots, so people, and there are some sort of levy imposed on that, even on an empty plot or empty house, there will be some sort of tax. So people will make it easy, and they will ask people to live in there rather than owning 3, 4, 5 houses or 20 plots. It will be easier for low income segments to live in there and make to be affordable for them.
There are many questions which people have asked, and which I will kind of ask them. But एक question मेरा आप दोनों से again है कि मान लीजिए जीत साहब, अगर आपको ली कार्बूजियर चाय पीने के लिए मिल जाए, तो आप उनको एक एडवाइस क्या देंगे? What is one advice you would give to Lee Corbusier जो उनको आज करना चाहिए, जो आपको लगता है कि जो आज ज्यादा रेलिवेंट होगा चंडीगढ़ को और ज्यादा चंडीगढ़ बनाने के लिए, और वहां पे जो लाइफ है लोगों का उसको और बेहतर बनाने के लिए एक एडवाइस आप उनको क्या देना चाहते हैं?
इनफैक्ट यू नो व्हाट आई वुड सजेस्ट, क्योंकि जब उन्होंने प्लान किया था उनके पास कोई डाटा नहीं था। सिटी जो प्लान किएगा किसी को पता ही नहीं कौन आके रहेगा कौन नहीं रहेगा, क्योंकि ये सारा जो एजेंडा बना था ये पीडब्ल्यूडी पंजाब ने बनाया हुआ था बिना किसी डाटा के। सो जो सिटी प्लान किया गया वो कार्बूजियर को उन्होंने ये दे दिया, ये हमारा स्कोप ऑफ वर्क है, ये उठाइए, इतने मकान हमें चाहिए, इस कैटेगरी के चाहिए और बिल्डिंग चाहिए। उनके पास कोई टाइम नहीं था, उनके पास कोई भी मौका नहीं था कि ये स्टडी करें क्या ये पॉपुलेशन आएगी या किस तरह की पॉपुलेशन आएगी। लेकिन फिर भी काबूजियर और जपीरी जनरल जो थे उन्होंने बहुत एक्सपेरिमेंट किए। ये नहीं है चंडीगढ़ बिल्कुल अमीरों के लिए बना, चंडीगढ़ गरीबों के लिए भी बना। चंडीगढ़ जो पहला सिटी है जिसने ये कहा कि जब गवर्नमेंट ने कहा 1 से 13 कैटेगरी के मकान बनेंगे, पहले में चीफ मिनिस्टर रहेगा, 13 में पीएन रहेगा, तब कार्बूजियर ने सोचा और उन्होंने सोचा ये जो बाद में काम करने वाले लोग हैं जो सरकार में नहीं है वो कहाँ रहेंगे। तो उन्होंने कैटेगरी 14 क्रिएट की जो कि लो कॉस्ट हाउसिंग थी, और जिसके उन्होंने बहुत बड़ी एक्सपेरिमेंट करके इतने बढ़िया मकान निकाले। लेकिन वो अनफॉर्चुनेटली क्या हुआ, क्योंकि किसी को कोई पता भी नहीं था कि कितने लोग आएंगे, तो इसलिए उसकी जो नंबर थे वो इतने कम रह गए कि उसकी शॉर्टेज होती गई। मैंने आपको कहा कि चंडीगढ़ की ये प्रॉब्लम रही, क्योंकि जब वो 5 लाख की बात कर रहे थे तो दोनों कार्बूजियर और बाद में उन्होंने एल्बर्ट मायर भी जब आए थे उन्होंने उनसे बातचीत की और दोनों को अल्टीमेटली ये कहा 5 लाख नहीं होंगे, 1.5 लाख के लिए प्लान कर लीजिए। तो 1.5 लाख किया गया। तो अल्टीमेटली उन्होंने उसी हिसाब से जो दूसरी बात क्या हुई चंडीगढ़ को बनाने के लिए सरकार ने सिर्फ 10 करोड़ रुपया दिया। आप बताइए 10 करोड़ में ये यूएनओ की हेडक्वार्टर की बिल्डिंग जो बनी हुई है वो जिनेवा में बनी है, उसकी कॉस्ट है, और यहाँ 10 करोड़ में सारा शहर बन रहा है। पैसा था ही नहीं। और दूसरा, सरकार में जो पीडब्ल्यूडी बैठी है उन्होंने कहा जी हमारे पास तो इतने पैसे हैं, इनसे ही मकान इतने बनाइए, उससे बियॉन्ड नहीं बना सकते। सो प्रॉब्लम क्या रही? कोई डाटा नहीं था, कोई डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं थे, कोई सपोर्टिंग फैसिलिटी नहीं थी, ना करबूजर को पता था कि हिंदुस्तानियों का कल्चर क्या होता है और किस तरह रहते हैं यहाँ पर। उनके पास जो दिया गया उन्होंने बना दिया। लेकिन आज अगर हालात होती जिस तरीके से वो थे, उन्होंने भी मार्शल ब्लॉक आपने देखा कैसे उन्होंने बनाया है, तो उन्होंने भी काफी एक्सपेरिमेंट किए थे। और आज होते तो शायद ज्यादा डाटा होता। अब हमारे पास माइग्रेशन उस वक्त थी नहीं, 10% पर हम टिके हुए थे। आज इतनी रैपिड माइग्रेशन है और पॉपुलेशन है, नेचुरली हम प्लानर्स को खुद नहीं समझ लग रही कि सिटी को टैकल क्या किया जाए। अनफॉर्चुनेटली क्या है कि सिटी जो है अल्टीमेटली हमें ये देखना है सिटी को इंक्लूसिव कैसे बनाना है, और ये हमारे प्लानर की भी प्रॉब्लम है। कभी हमने मास्टर प्लान को इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर को प्लानिंग का पार्ट ही नहीं समझा। अगर उनके लिए होता तो कुछ ना कुछ मकानों के लिए जगह दे देते, लेकिन हमने क्या किया, इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर इज नेवर ए पार्ट ऑफ द अर्बन प्लानिंग प्रोसेस। इसीलिए आपने देखा कि कोई इनफॉर्मल मार्केट के लिए जगह नहीं है, कोई गरीबों के लिए रहने के लिए नहीं जगह है, और जिसके लिए ये ऑलरेडी जो प्रॉब्लम हो रही है। लेकिन एक चीज हमें समझने की जरूरत है, लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड, पॉवर्टी इज नॉट ए अर्बन प्रॉब्लम, पॉवर्टी इज ए ह्यूमन प्रॉब्लम। पॉवर्टी क्या है? ह्यूमन प्रॉब्लम है। ये नहीं है कि गरीब आदमी शहरों में बैठे हैं, गरीब तो जहां भी है आदमी है, उनमें कुछ अमीर और गरीब हैं। लेकिन प्रॉब्लम शहरों में क्यों दिखती है? क्योंकि दे गेट कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड इन सिटी एंड दैट्स वेयर यू सी द पावर। और सेकेंडली जो अल्टीमेटली है, हमारे नॉर्म्स और स्टैंडर्ड जो ऐसे हैं। आप देखिए, अगर हमारे पास एक तरफ जमीन की कमी है, जमीन बहुत एक्सपेंसिव है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ हमारे नॉर्म्स क्या है प्लानिंग में? एक कहता है जी हमारे 7,500 पॉपुलेशन होगी, एक हाई स्कूल दे दो 4 एकड़ के लिए, ठीक है। अब 15,000 पॉपुलेशन होगी, एक और हाई स्कूल दे दो 4 एकड़ के लिए। कोई ये नहीं कहता कि ये 7.5 4 एकड़ में जो बना हुआ है स्कूल, जिस पर इतना पैसा खर्चा है, इतनी जमीन लगी है, क्या ये 2 शिफ्ट नहीं चल सकते? क्या मॉर्निंग में एक शिफ्ट नहीं चलती और दूसरी नहीं चलती? आप बताइए, हमारे स्टैंडर्ड एकदम ठीक हो जाएंगे, we'll have more housing. You look at the technical education. Why education is very expensive? आपको मेडिकल कॉलेज बनाना है तो आपको एक हॉस्पिटल चाहिए 500 बेड का। एक इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज बनाना है तो एआईसीटी की इतनी नॉर्म्स हैं। आपने कैपेसिटी डबल करनी है, वो कहता है एरिया डबल कर दो। Why the hell you should do it? Why can't you run the same infrastructure? In fact, जो अभी हमारा जमाना है, और इंडिया में 2.4% जमीन है, 17.7% पॉपुलेशन को अकोमोडेट करेंगे, कैसे करेंगे? तो हमारे लैंड को जो है 24/7/365 यूज करने का नंबर 1 एक तरीका होना चाहिए। नंबर 2 जो है, अगर गरीबी का मकानों का हल करना है, वी शुड एक्सेप्ट द राइट टू शेल्टर, बट प्लीज सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम द राइट टू ओनरशिप ऑफ शेल्टर। हमने उनको मकान मालिक नहीं बनाना, हम उनको एक्सेप्ट करते हैं, उनको मकान चाहिए, रहने के लिए जगह चाहिए। पर जब तक अगर आप ये सोचते हैं हम सबको मकान मालिक बना देंगे, तो फिर ये प्रॉब्लम कभी हल नहीं होगी। वो मकान बेच के कहीं और चले जाएंगे और हम वहीं के वहीं रह जाएंगे। आई थिंक लार्ज इशू।
सर आपने तो बेसिकली ली कार्बूजर की तारीफ ही कर दी, चाय का बिल वही भरेंगे। सो ओनली सजेशन वी शुड गिव वाज कि ही प्लान्ड for the kind of poor, he had that 14th section, but शायद थोड़ा कम बनाया और बनाना चाहिए था।
मैंने कहा ना, मैंने कहा अगर आप चंडीगढ़ का विजन देखेंगे, वो पता क्या लिखा हुआ है? ए सिटी which offer basic amenities of life to the poorest of poor of its citizen। आप बिलीव करिए ना, पैसा कहां से आना था मकान बनाने के लिए? कार्बूजियर तो कर नहीं सकता था, सरकार ने कह दिया इतने मकान बना दो ये पुअर के लिए, तो उन्होंने उतने बना के दे दिए। दैट इज व्हाट दैट क्रिएटेड ए प्रॉब्लम। इट वाज मोर बेसिकली bureaucratic kind of system which governed the total growth and development of the city, because कारण ये था, this was a government city and every inch of land is owned by the government. There is no private person, on the land. So that was the dictum. But surely, आज Corbusier होते तो वो गरीबों का बात, Corbusier का खैर, I can't say, Corbusier role was very limited. A Sperry genre and those people which done the major job to make the city reality, they would have surely done more job.
खुरम साहब, आप एक एडवाइस क्या देंगे डॉक्टर सैडिस को निहारी खिलाते वक्त?
निहारी तो लाहौर में मिलती है, इस्लामाबाद में नहीं मिलती. The only problem which I have observed in case of Islamabad, वो ये कि we don't have any play areas in any sectoral areas. So we have schools and colleges and other amenities, but there is no area allocated for play field. And at the same time, initially that might be, as Ajit was saying, that the requirement was one high school for one sector, but with the increased population, with more density being there is more requirement of schools. So at the moment, what's happening is now that people are moving to different sectors for schools, because there is no space in one sector, so they are going to another sector. And then, so if you have 4 or 5 children, so there are chances that all of them are going to different sectors. So this is the one problem we have in sectoral areas, and also the open spaces, which we seriously, there are open spaces, incidental open spaces, nalas and other green cover, but play field we seriously lag.
खुरम साहब, प्रॉब्लम क्या है, हम प्लानर का क्या करते हैं, हम ग्रीन स्पेस मार्क कर देते हैं इस प्लान पर और सोचते हैं ग्राउंड पर ये पार्क बढ़िया बन गया. वो पार्क नहीं बनता, क्योंकि पार्क इज वेरी एक्सपेंसिव टू कंस्ट्रक्ट एंड मेंटेन. सो दैट्स अ पॉलिसी विद प्लानर्स आल्सो. What we do and what is actual ground reality. I think we need to be more realistic and see what is best and what is optimum.
जी बिल्कुल ठीक है.
क्वेश्चन और है जो लोगों ने पूछा भी है कि दोनों शहरों में, चंडीगढ़ भी और इस्लामाबाद भी, सड़कें इतनी सीधी क्यों हैं, और खास करके तब जब दोनों फुटहिल्स पे बने हुए हैं. सो व्हाई इज ओनली द ग्रिड? डू वी डोंट लव द कर्व्स?
मैं जवाब दूं आपको पहले.
हाँ,
खुरम जी, आप कहेंगे या मैं? देखिए, जो पहला प्लान बना था, आपने देखा ना, कर्व्स था, एंड इट वाज कन्फॉर्मिंग टू द साइड, बिकॉज वो जो थे वो जब नॉर्थ से साउथ को चलते थे वाइडन हो रहे थे. तो ही गेव द लीफ शेप्ड प्लान व्हिच वाज एग्जैक्टली क्रॉलरी. प्रॉब्लम पता क्या है? प्रॉब्लम अमेरिकन और ये फ्रांस की है. अमेरिकन ऑलवेज दे डोंट बिलीव इन स्ट्रेट लाइन, दे बिलीव्स इन कर्व्स. तो उसने कर्व लगा दिया, क्योंकि उसको भी पता था कि नेबरहुड का कौन सा पैटर्न होता है, कैसे चलता है. तो उन्होंने सुपर ब्लॉक का सिस्टम लगा के कर्व दे दी. जब कर्बूजियर साहब आ गए, तो कर्बूजियर को कर्व से बड़ी नफरत थी. मैं कोट देता हूँ, उसने लिखा था कर्बूजियर ने, उनको कर्व से बड़ी दिक्कत थी. वो औरतों से बड़ी नफरत करते थे, इसीलिए उनकी वाइफ के साथ बनी नहीं. उन्होंने कहा, द कर्व्स, आई एम एग्जैक्टली कोटिंग what he said, curves are ruinous, they are dangerous, they don't lead you anywhere. It's only the straight line which tells you what is focus and where your destination is. Therefore, I remove all these curves and make the thing straight. So this straight line, he says, is all in the destination, in all the vocabulary. And he went back to Greek and Roman, and he said, it has been followed, since all the time human being came on this, and it started with the first, जब आदमी ने जमीन को बीजना शुरू किया था, जो हल चला था वो ग्रिड आयरन से ही चला था. तो वो कहता है कि ये straight line is the only thing, so therefore I shape the city as a straight line. I will not have the curves. और मैं ये बताता हूँ आपको, एक इसकी कहानी देखिए. जब इसने कर्बूजियर ने लेक बनी ना, ये लेक बनी, जब आर्टिफिशियल लेक बनी, तो उसने कहा बंद स्ट्रेट लाइन होगी. कैन यू बिलीव इट? दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ साइकी ऑफ द कर्बूजियर. चीफ इंजीनियर ने कहा कोई बंद स्ट्रेट नहीं होता, ये बंद जो होगा कर्व होगा, जिस तरीके से ये कंटूर चलता है. कर्बूजियर हट गया. वो chief engineer was also very tough. He said, have you seen a state line band, So we cannot allow this. So ultimately, after a lot of haggling, Corbusier was made to convince, यहाँ पर आपका state line का फंडा नहीं चलेगा, please ये कर्व चलिए, तो इसलिए ये कर्व बनी, otherwise he wanted this, even the lake to be a straight line right from one end to another end.
बात है सर, मुझे तो लग रहा है कि उन्होंने पानी को भी कंट्रोल।
नहीं, हमने आपके सर की ना मीटिंग ज्वाइन कर ली है, ताकि कम से कम जब मीटिंग एंड हो तो हमें पता चले।
नहीं, अच्छा किया आपने सफादत।
Last minute.
खुरम साहब, when I was zooming down to the master plan or the image of Rawalpindi, I found it was a very organic city. उसमें कोई इस ढंग के ब्लॉक्स नहीं है। तो जब आप कहते हैं कि भाई इस्लामाबाद जो है वो सिस्टर सिटी है रावलपिंडी का, तो रावलपिंडी जब इतना ऑर्गेनिक है तो इस्लामाबाद ऐसा क्यों लगता है कि रूठा हुआ है और सारे ग्रिड आयरन है, वो इसमें फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी क्यों नहीं?
इस्लामाबाद की साइट ट्विन सिटी तो हम कहते हैं, लेकिन जो रावलपिंडी है दैट वाज ऑलरेडी बिल्ट, सो जस्ट टू मेक श्योर कि इस्लामाबाद की सस्टेनेबिलिटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ लेबर एंड इन टर्म्स ऑफ अदर नेसेसिटी जो रावलपिंडी ने फीड इन करनी थी, तो वो वहाँ से हुई। और उसकी ग्रोथ जो है वो ऑर्गेनिक ही, इनिशियली डॉक्सीडस ने उसको भी स्ट्रेट लाइन करने की कोशिश की, लेकिन समहाउ वो इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हुआ और रावलपिंडी ऑर्गेनिक, उसकी जो ग्रोथ है वो ऑर्गेनिक ही हुई। और इस्लामाबाद में भी हम जो 22-23 सेक्टर्स हैं वो हम ग्रिड पे डेवलप कर सके हैं, लेकिन मोस्ट ऑफ इस्लामाबाद वो भी ग्रिड पे नहीं है और उसमें हर किस्म की डेवलपमेंट है। और अभी किसी ने क्वेश्चन किया कि वो ग्रिड आयरन पे ही क्यों रहा, क्योंकि ये मास्टर प्लान है उसका जो बेसिक फिलॉसफी थी वो ग्रिड आयरन की थी, इसलिए दैट वाज द रीजन कि उसमें ग्रिड को एम्फसाइज किया गया। लेकिन उसमें ली कॉर्बूजियर और जो डॉक्सीडस की प्लानिंग में एक मैं जो पॉइंट समझता हूँ कि वो मिस कर गए, और जो आपने पहले पूछा कि वो क्या कर सकते थे। इफ यू लुक एट मैनहट्टन भी सारा ग्रिड पे बना है, लेकिन देयर इज अ ब्रॉडवे व्हिच इज अ डायगोनल from Harlem River to right to the Chinatown, the downtown, वो पूरा एक diagonal है. So you have an option if you have to bisect Manhattan. There is an option. So is the case with Washington D.C., which was planned in early 19th century. That is a typical gridiron capital city, but at the same time there are diagonals. So Le Corbusier and Doxydus, they actually miss diagonal diagonals. So that is the one thing.
एक क्वेश्चन खुरम साहब और पूछने का मन कर रहा है कि जो मरकज है इस्लामाबाद में, अगर मैं आंखें बंद कर लूं और मैं आई वांट टू इमेजिन व्हाट द प्लेस मरकज इज, हाउ वुड यू एक्सप्लेन इट? व्हाट इज द लाइफ इन मरकज? Probably in the evening, probably in the maybe in broad daylight, for different types of people. तो लोगों के मद्देनजर मरकज क्या है, उसकी लाइफ क्या है, उसके बारे में थोड़ा बताएं।
इस्लामाबाद में चूंकि each sector has its unique character. जो G series है, that is considered to be middle income. F series, that is considered to be higher income, for higher income, and I series, which are population. But at the moment, even I series are more expensive. They are very highly priced. In F series, which are the initial sectors, you find all international brands and high-end restaurants all over. There's activity till late night. And if you go down to G series Maracas and I series Maracas, definitely the quality of life is slightly less, but more or less the activity, if you try to find out restaurants, if you try to find out the shopping places, shopping centers, they all are placed there.
हमारे यहाँ मिनिस्ट्री में एक बहुत ब्राइट यंग फेलो है जियाउल हक, तो वो उनका एक ओपिनियन है कि जो बायलॉज और रेगुलेशंस होते हैं वो क्या डेमोक्रेसी में वो उतर पाते हैं जमीन पे? जिसके मतलब जो स्प्रॉल हम देखते हैं, जो हम स्लम्स देखते हैं, मतलब why don't they prevent kind of such a kind of unplanned development if we are planners?
देखिए, बाइलॉज आर लाइक इन लॉज, यू नो, किसी को सूट करते हैं, किसी को नहीं सूट करते। अगर शादीशुदा हो गए तो फिर पता लगता है इन लॉज का क्या रोल है। तो ये जो बाइलॉज बनते हैं, ये बनाने वाले कौन हैं? इनफैक्ट बाइलॉज आर द बिगेस्ट हिंड्रेंस, यू नो। कई बार होता है क्या है, हम सोचते हैं मास्टर प्लान इज द प्रमोटर ऑफ प्लान डेवलपमेंट, और कई बार होता है मास्टर प्लान इज द बिगेस्ट, यू नो, प्रमोटर ऑफ अनप्लान डेवलपमेंट। क्योंकि इतना हम क्या कर रहे हैं, उसको फ्रीज, सिटी को फ्रीज करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं 20 साल के लिए। हमें अपना फ्यूचर नहीं पता, हम सिटी का फ्यूचर डिफाइन कर रहे हैं। तो दिस इज ए प्रॉब्लम विद अस, यू नो, द वे वी आर डूइंग। लेकिन बात जो है वो अल्टीमेटली बाइलॉज की, ये अगर देखते हैं बाइलॉज कौन बनाते हैं, इट्स बेसिकली मेड बाय प्लानर्स और यू नो आर्किटेक्ट्स विच आर देयर। और ग्राउंड रियलिटीज इतनी चेंज हो रही है कि बाइलॉज जो हैं दे डोंट स्टैंड द टेस्ट ऑफ द टाइम, यू नो। और बाइलॉज आर मोर इम्पेडिमेंट देन दे आर फैसिलिटेटर ऑफ दिस। और कभी आप बाइलॉज देखिए, आपका एफएआर 1 कर दिया तो इसका मतलब लैंड की यूटिलाइजेशन आपकी बिल्कुल घटिया होगी। 3 कर दो, 4 कर दो, तो यू नो लैंड, देखिए लैंड की यूटिलाइजेशन और ऑप्टिमाइजेशन कहाँ है? ये आपके हाइट, एफएआर, सेटबैक्स और कवरेज पर ही डिपेंड करती है ना। तो अल्टीमेटली जो परसेप्शन हमारी है, लैंड है क्या, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली वी आर ट्रीटिंग लैंड एज ए कमोडिटी, यू नो। और क्या हो रहा है, क्या अभी मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, जब हमारे जमाने में एफएआर फिक्स होता था, आजकल के जमाने में पता क्या है, अनलिमिटेड एफएआर है, अनलिमिटेड हाइट है। और पूछो उनसे कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है कि नहीं है। इनफैक्ट यू नो व्हाट आई टेल यू, will it be logical or rational to define FAR for the individual building or for the entire lot? You know, you should know what is the, you know, sustainability of this area, how much population it is going to come. That will all stand on the built up area. Why can't we have, you know, आपका एक जिनका neighborhood है, neighborhood में अगर FAR 1 आ जाता है तो उनको पता है कि ये 2 बाई 2 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर का हमें 4 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर ही बिल्ट अप होगा। हम कोशिश करते हैं, कमर्शियल अलग है, इंडस्ट्रियल अलग है, इंस्टीट्यूशनल अलग है, घर के अलग है, फिर उनका मरले का अलग है, वो कनाल का अलग है। तो हमें खुद ही नहीं समझ आ रही क्या कर रहे हैं। तो अल्टीमेटली यू नो वी मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड द इम्प्लीकेशन ऑफ बाइलॉज, यू नो। पर कोई भी आदमी बाइलॉज बनाने के लिए इतनी तकलीफ बिल्कुल नहीं करता। वो तो सिंपली, अगर आपका अगर डेमोक्रेसी में है तो आपके ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं या आपके बिल्डर्स जो हैं, हाँ, वही चलाने वाले हैं, वही फिक्स करते हैं। सो आई थिंक दिस नीड्स टू बी सीन इन द रोल ऑफ बाइलॉज, यू नो, हाँ, एंड दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स इन रैशनलाइजिंग द डेवलपमेंट।
बातें तो हमारी शहरों की अनगिनत हैं, खत्म नहीं हो सकती हैं। There are so many questions to ask, so many things to learn. But I think we have already, we are 1.5 hours when we started. I want to introduce the lady host जिन्होंने आइडिया कंसीव किया कि ये प्लेस मेकिंग का मीटिंग किया जाए, विनीता शेट्टी। विनीता जी, thank you, all your idea. And she is a journalist, she's a writer, she's a traveler based in Barcelona, sometimes in Geneva. Today she's in Mangalore, India. So she's all across. And I have read her writings, great thing to learn about. Vinita ji, if you would like to ask any question to Jeet ji, Khurram bhai, please, all yours.
Thank you so much, Vikash, for playing Cupid on this this weekend of love, and we really felt the love. You know, the similarities between the two cities, the the differences, the reconciliations. I loved what Jeet said about the unique vocabulary that defines Chandigarh. Espace, soleil et verdure. Never was it more relevant than now in this era of the pandemic. And the management of the city ensure that, you know, it would not be overbuilt. That's something that's struck me as very different from the way Islamabad had developed in a vertical manner, and you know, with a shortage of green spaces, which struck me very as you know, that's an eye opener for me. And thanks for your candor, Jeet, in admitting that public spaces are not utilized very well. Even the Plaza of the People is deserted very often because of location, because of security. And at the same time, I found the points made by Khurram about, you know, the zoning for the poor and the lack of a central business district very resonant. Um, the, the problems of migration, unexpected migration, overregulation of buildings, and the you know, housing, acute shortage of housing, were really interesting aspects which you brought out in the Diner Metropolis, as you described it. And I think if I was to conclude with one thing, I would just say, let's feel the love for the curve. Curves are, you know, bring sort of a kind of harmony to life, and you describe them. I mean, as you said, Corbusier described them as ruinous or dangerous, but the arc, the curve is so beautiful, and let's see if we can try and incorporate them in the way the cities grow in the future. So that's it for the third in this series, this cross-border conversations between Pakistan and India, and we will have a fourth coming up in March. So everybody, please do watch out for that. And you know, we post the questions. If Jeet and Khurram, you want to put your email down in the chat box, perhaps people can follow up with you directly. And there's so many questions. There are far too many questions to sort of you know, to ask, but perhaps they can approach you individually and ask for, you know, get their answers. K.Farid at shehersaz.com. And Jeet?
Jeet.kumar 1944 at gmail.com.
Jeet.kumar 1944 at gmail.com. And perhaps Vikash, if you want to put your email down in case.
Yeah, I am Vikas Chandra 5201 @gmail.com. I'm there on LinkedIn, easily available, man. Asba, thank you. You are the one who started it, and I pass on the baton to you with all the best wishes from Delhi and from all across India. Thank you. All yours, please.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I'm glad that our speakers had put forward such an informative session. And I love how the participants have asked the questions. They were very attentive towards this session, and they have interest to learning more about it. So we have the email IDs, and you can ask the questions directly to the speakers. And this recording will be up soon on Placemaking India YouTube channel with the Urban Jam, and you can view the presentation given by the speakers there as well. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us. I guess we shall end this session today. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all this opportunity, and we stay connected with each other, you know. I think it's a great learning for us, you know, from.
Thank you. Thank you everyone. Wonderful session.
Thank you everyone.
Yeah.